Hi everybody, I'm Patty Toledo back here with Creative Raids, and today I have my right, left arm, right hand. I don't know, Charly. Like, Charly is my right side and limb. I don't know. It was a weird introduction, and I have Haz Dullul from Hazimation, and Haz, introduce yourself as much as you can, and then we have a pretty interesting topic today.
Okay, thanks, Patty, and nice to meet you, Charlie. Hi everyone. I'm Haz Dullul. I'm the founder of Hazimation. I co-founded the company with my business partner Paula Crickard, who is a film industry veteran who's worked on like Expendables 4 and so on. Our company predominantly came from live action. We moved into animation, specifically Unreal Engine. We made our first animated feature film, which is looking to come out early next year, and we transitioned into video game development through that process, which you all know as Transmedia. We're currently in the middle of a bunch of projects. One of them is Max Beyond, which is a video game which was shown at Gamescom. So anyone going to Gamescom should come check it out. And I'm also the director on video game cinematics, and one of them is with Funcom on a game called Dune. That's it.
That was a full propaganda, Has. That
was proper, wasn't it? That was proper.
was a proper propaganda.
I've been like practicing.
Yes. But I wanted to start, like, we're going to be talking about Unreal Engine and Fortnite and Transmedia and this connection, but I wanted to start from a very basics. I think a lot of people, especially people that work with Transmedia, they know really well what the term is and what this encompasses. But for the people that are just starting in games, barely knows game industry or worked only in game industry, how can we define transmedia? What is the definition of transmedia for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad you said for me because I have my definition is a little bit. I'm kind of against a little bit early transmedia. Just to give you context, back in the day when someone said transmedia, I would cringe a little bit because like when I saw transmedia, I would see, oh, there's a game being made into a comic book, and that's considered as transmedia. And although it is because it's shared universe, what I believe transmedia is you create a piece of IP and it's shared across the universe, various mediums, whether it's comic books, video games. But for us, true transmedia is you build the asset once and you reuse that asset throughout, as opposed to rebuilding stuff from scratch. That to me, for Hazimation, that's our biggest ethos, and this is where we fell into transmedia. So, for example, we did the animated feature film Rift. All our assets are super high res for film quality fidelity. But when we make the video game, we didn't go and rebuild those assets. We just took those, migrated them into the game project, and away we go. Now, of course, there's a bit of work to be done with the environments, but we've cut our art production in half because we're taking a transmedia approach. Even right down to doing a Web3 version, or even trying to create a UEFN version of the game, or to explore the world of Rift in UEFN. We will still utilize the same assets. And to me, that is true transmedia.
I have worked with transmedia a big chunk of my career. I think there is one thing that for me is the pet peeve, and we can fight here if there is the point, which a lot of people mix transmedia and cross-platform, and those things for me are very different things.
Yes.
If you are doing the same experience in different platforms, this is cross-platform. This is not transmedia.
Correct.
For me, transmedia is when you are you created an IP and you're telling a story in different media with different points of view. They are complementary of each other. They are not the same thing. I think I might be getting the reference wrong, but I think it was Matrix that did a really interesting story that they had the film, but then the game is a continuation of the story. It's not the same story. And then you have
Animatrix.
websites or you have different things. I think people mix it a lot because they go, oh, Harry Potter is translated. No, if you're doing the same game with exactly the same line as the film, you just created another media for the same story. It's not transmedia anymore. And I think that that's one thing that it was always that broke the term a little bit because people mix transmedia and cross-platform a lot.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Good. I was expecting a fight. There wasn't a fight.
No, I mean, to be completely honest with you, Paddy, like, you know, like when we decided to make Max Beyond, the question we asked was why? Why should we make the video game spin-off of the movie? What are we gonna do differently in terms of the point of view, like you know succinctly said? What are we going to do different that's going to give it a new experience? But for us, most importantly, we don't want people to having to watch the movie to play the game. They should play the game and still be immersed in that world, right? So absolutely 100% agree with you. You know, my point was mainly from a production point of view, like why rebuild when you build it already, kind of thing. But the experience should always be a new experience for sure.
Yeah, and from a sorry, Charlie, I will let you talk. I promise.
Poor Charlie.
Yeah, but also from I agree with you from the production point of view, and also from a commercial point of view, is that I have a really good friend called Houston Howard, and we had this discussion many times, which is the advantage for companies to use a transmedia approach when it comes from the business side. Because if you already put production costs into creating a film or a video game, or why not expand that not only from the IP point of view and the marketing point of view, but also from the business point of view, because your production costs on everything else will be a lot lower because you are already reusing assets that you had before. And also that already connects with what we wanted to talk, which is also UGC related, which is if you created the assets and everything there, why not use UGC platforms, which Fortnite now is as well, but there are others in the market, to actually use those assets, allow the players or the viewers to use those assets to create their own view and their own experiences based on the original IP. It costs you very little, if anything, and it really brings immersion to the experience. So business-wise, it makes sense as well. Now, Charlie, you go. Sorry.
Charlie's itching to go, I can see.
No, you've just set me up perfectly. So at Global Game Jam, one of the jams we're away to do is a Malta Heritage Jam. And we're working with a film studio in Malta who are LiDAR and drone scanning heritage sites, putting through a bespoke pipeline into Unreal, and then obviously accompanied with historians, archaeologists, and all of like the real knowledge background. The participants are going to be given those environments and the knowledge and the history, and then they're going to create their games in those environments. But the assets are ones that the film company uses, the film company has. Is that transmedia?
I think that's smart production, that's for sure.
Well, there we go.
I think it can be transmedia if it becomes something that is rolled out into different media to tell the story.
Yeah.
So that I think that's the problem with every term, and we're gonna go back to topic, but to say every term, transmedia, metaverse, all these terms is because they are so open-ended, and it depends on your experience as well. You can actually play with the terms based on what you want to do. And even the definition that I was like, oh, cross-platform is different, but that's my point of view. Might be that someone would come and say, no, cross-platform is inherently transmedia because you are going between different medias. Like it's so yeah, when you're playing with terms, we can go above and beyond on everything, and it can be but I think, Charlie, one thing you said that I think connects really well as well is and it's also another question that we can go on the whole thing, and Haz, I promise we will go back to your topic.
This is great.
As if because they are doing the jam with different assets from heritage, is it can it be seen as UGC? Because in the whole point of UGC is, although it's connected to being the player, it doesn't mean that game developers, and goes back to what Haz is doing with Fortnite, as developers are also great users of the UGC ideas and oh God, and we could have a whole discussion on, is this like, how can you make it, is it an original idea if you're using assets that are from another source? Like, oh God, that can be a Pandora box that we can open here. But like, Haz, tell us what, like, that I kind of feel I broke the original. So
no. This is very good though, because that's one of the reasons I love about your podcast, Paddy, is that it's so free flowing that things come out more natural, and that's why I listen to all the episodes and stuff, which is great. I think definitely. I think this actually leads into why we decided to do a Fortnite game. Like, we had no idea. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't even playing Fortnite until last year Christmas. When I started playing it on my PC. So I always looked at Fortnite as like, do I want to? Is it really like a console gaming, PC game that I want to be doing? But when you look at it from a business point of view, right? Back to make a Fortnite game before UEFN, which is the Unreal editor of Fortnite, before that came out, the only way to make a Fortnite experience was using what you called the Island Creator, right? Fortnite Creator 2, which is great. And you see tons of islands, but the issue was they all look the same. Every single island, they call them islands, they all look the same. And when UEFN was announced at GDC, and I remember being at GDC in the Epic room when they did it, and it was like an amazing thing. It was like Steve Jobs came on with the new iPhone, so everyone's like, "Oh my god!" like Tim Sweeney was literally like God on stage, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, this changes everything," because like now you can bring, as a creator, I can bring my own visuals, my own vision, my own style, and quote unquote studio brand into Fortnite. Not only do I have that freedom to do that now, to make it feel more unique, but I also have a user acquisition base now. There's a 500 million plus user base. So as a production company that is sole focus is to create original IP, it's a great way to test your IP. So when I saw that, I'm like, okay, well, we got to do a UEFN project. I mean, we got to play with this. But, when you run a studio, as we all know, every time that you spend on something comes from a budget and resource point of view, right? If you put an artist on there to help you, there's a resource cost. You got to track that. So we allocate a portion of a budget aside, saying, we're going to use it as R&D to test this. I spent a lot of time in UEFN in Fortnite just figuring it out, because I'm sure you can all appreciate, like, if you're making a game for a specific community, let's call it a community, right? That 500 million plus community, they're very specific on what they like and what they don't like. So you get to look at a lot of the videos. TikTok and Twitter is like full of those recorded videos of people talking over it, and you see that they just want something quick, fast. But at the same time, they do like storytelling, but they're not going to sit for a 3-minute cinematic, right? They just want to go in there. So we thought, okay, the next step is, what can we do IP-wise? And this is where the whole Transmedia, we're like, well, we're essentially a Transmedia company. Should we take Rift and move it into UEFN? And we asked the question, why? And everyone on the team was like, why would we do that? It's not the place for that to live in. So we were like, okay, well, let's go back to our treasure trove. As a production company, you always create ideas, develop projects, and then you shelve them because of budget reason, resource reason, or you just don't have the time or focus. And we were developing a project last year called Mintopia, which was an animated TV show about this ship that crashes on the moon, and they have to find their way to another ship in order to get home. But there are monsters on the moon. So think Gravity meets A Quiet Place set on the moon. That was essentially the animated series pitch. And we use Unreal Engine 5 to create the sizzle trailer. Because as you know, when you create pictures, you have your pitch deck. But then, if you have Unreal, you can create a really good trailer. So we created a trailer, but then we shelved it. We showed it at Annecy last year, and that was about it. So we went back and why don't we just revive that project, which we don't know when we're going to get a chance to do this. Let's revive that. We've built all the assets and everything. Migrate that into Fortnite and then create the Fortnite experience. But again, you have to ask yourself from this is from a creative point of view. From a creative point of view, it's like, what is the story we're telling? You know, whether it's a movie, whether it's a game, even a piece of music, there's always a story behind every piece of art. Even a painting, there's a story behind it. So, like, what is the story? What is going to drive that Fortnite experience to make it fun, right? And we realized, well, the plot of the movie is fun. Like, you got to run around in 0G gravity, try and battle your way through monsters in order to get to a spaceship to make it home. And I remember looking at, I've got this on my phone as well, this image of Buzz Aldrin took a photograph on the moon of Earth. And that picture fascinated me. It's one of the reasons we created Mintopia as a TV show. Like, being on the moon, looking at Earth, and go, I want to go home. You know, home is just there, but it's like this thing like this. So that became the driving force. And that's probably why, you know, when we released the game back, you know, like last Friday, it got a lot of traction. But from a business point of view, it's user acquisition, it's testing the IP, and also there's a part of the business that we could potentially grow to create these small, fast, quick games. But most importantly, it kind of upskilled, including myself, my game design skills. Like, because here's the thing, right? We're making an Xbox game at the moment called Max Beyond, which is super high res, super glossy. You know, it's like 20 gig or something. But when you're making a Fortnite game, you are limited. Like, for example, you only have 400 megabytes to play with. That's everything. Everything. Sound, everything, 400 meg. Now, I came from the world of, like, my first game that I worked on back in the day was, like, PS1 going to PS2. It's kind of showed my age a bit. And I remember I had to, like, take a 128 by 128 texture, tiled, UV map it in 3D Studio, or 3D Studio Early Max, and make something look amazing with just a 128 by 128 texture, because you didn't have video memory in the PS1 or PS2. Now we have like 2K textures, 4K textures. So for me, I'm like, this is great. This forces my team, who are predominantly quite young, you know, they were like, my Photoshop file is 400 meg. Dude, I can't work in 400 meg. It forces us to be really smart, how to create something that look really slick, but very high end. So from a business point of view, not only is there's a commercial angle, there is an internal upskilling and training, which I feel is very important in the business. If you want your team, especially if you want to retain your team, is to keep upskilling.
There are a few questions that pop in my head from that. But I think the first one was one thing you mentioned about Fortnite is, because you're creating something in Fortnite, it's a very specific audience. It's the same. It's the same if you create something in Roblox. You have flexibility on what to do, but the audience you have in Roblox is very specific. Yeah. And I think nowadays there are also other UGC platforms that are trying to get different audiences to try to break this mode. The things that pop in my head is, first is, yes, I can see these UGC platforms as a great way to test ideas. But when you're testing in Fortnite and Roblox, you have a specific mode that you have to fill. Do you think that there is a market there to do the same approach, but in other UGC platforms where maybe the audience is not as niche or niche oriented as Roblox and Fortnite is? And my second question, I will give both away because I will forget them, is this where the market is going at the moment, where instead of going full development and then going on Steam or Google Play or Apple, and then you do your things, is the market going to a point where we test this on UGC platforms, see how the market goes, and then afterwards go on full development?
Wow, I mean, you always ask the best questions, Paddy. What can I say? Okay, I mean, just to start from the last question, I think it's a form of a vertical slice, right? We're all familiar with the vertical slice terminology, which is having a playable version that is close to final quality. But like, for us, Mintopia is a vertical slice of that IP. It doesn't mean it's only ever going to be a Fortnite game. You know, we still going to go and make the TV show. We may end up making a console game, but at least we have a vertical slice that people can play and experience. So I think that's one thing. But also from a commercialization point of view, you got to remember, you know, even with Roblox as well, you can monetize as well. Like, especially for Fortnite, you know, one of the first things we did was we applied for monetization because, you know, as a company, we're not just going to like make a demo. We want to see how does this affect our business trajectory, so that, you know, if we are raising investment or we are going to look to do an expansion pack or do more, we got to have some kind of metrics. And just having user acquisition metrics is one thing, but also what does that equate to monetization wise, especially with Epic's generosity? I think it's 80-20, 80 developer, 20 to Epic, which is like amazing. It's a very appealing and attractive business proposition if you do it right. But the other thing also is people have to realize, whether it's Roblox, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's any type of UGC, like there is the cost of making it, and then there is the cost of promoting it. You can make the most amazing game. If no one's heard of it, you're not going to get any traction. It's going to get the low numbers. And you're like, why am I getting low numbers? Is my game crap? No, it's not, because no one's heard of it. So I think people have to remind themselves on that. I mean, you know, when you look at the early UGC stuff, even on Minecraft, like people are recording stuff on Minecraft, some of these like kids were getting a lot of like fame because they were just posting stuff on TikTok, right? That's essentially, you know what, we can learn a lot from these kids because they know how to market their stuff because they're talking to their friends and their fan base, right? And I think that's something where I find, like, if you're a mature studio, or the studio run by mature people like us who's been in the industry for a long time, you know, yes, we've got a lot of experience in the industry, but I think at the end of the day, the consumers and the audience kind of dictates a lot of like decisions that we make sometimes in the way we. That's why, you know, when I worked on the TV show at Disney, we constantly did focus testing. Kids are brutal, by the way. Like, they don't have no filter. Yeah. If something's crap, something is crap. Yeah. And they don't apologize for it. But I feel like, you know, as developers, you could use UGC for that. And whether that's going to replace the way games are being made, I don't think so. Like I said, it's another vertical slice. It's another medium. I don't think it will replace it at all. I think, you know, there are the people that play Fortnite also go and play Cyberpunk or okay, maybe a bit older skewed, but maybe like they're going to play like a younger game. They have Nintendo Switch. So I think, yeah, it's kind of like Netflix and Amazon. And, you know, most of us have more than two streamings, right? Like I've got them all. And because I like the option. And I think it's the same with games. You know, people have those consoles and different like Roblox and Fortnite and so on because they want different experiences.
So when you're creating new IP, new character, new whatever, do you look at it from a film point of view first or a games point of view first?
That's a good question. We always look from a film point of view, mainly because traditionally that's where we came from. But now that we're much more expanded from a games point of view, for us it always comes down to like, you know, does this story resonate with an audience, right? First off. And it's like with any medium, your elevator pitch has got to be sharp and to the point, right? But lately we've been looking at specific games oriented stuff, like where we're like, you know, we have this great idea for a game that has to be fun. Would that work?
They do have to be fun.
It has to be fun. And, you know, and I'm gonna, you know, I listened to the last episode, Paddy, that you had. What the guy's name? The guy from Rogue, and I think the lady in Japan. Scott, and lady in Japan.
Scott and Bobby. Yeah.
Amazing podcast, and they're right. It's got to be fun. You got to know what your game loop is. That's a very different mindset when you're pitching than a movie. Because in a movie, you have your log line, your pitch, and then some of the comps, like, you know, it's like what I said earlier. It's Gravity meets A Quiet Place. Ooh, two of the biggest box office hits. Great, tell me more. And it's a simple plot. We get it. Whereas in a game, yeah, you have that, but also like, what is the game loop? You know, how many hours is there in this game? You know, why should people play this? How does this differentiate from an experiential point of view? Because from a film, you force the audience to experience what you want them to experience. You have that frame, and they're on that road. I always compare films like a roller coaster ride. You're like, you know, you're on that roller coaster ride, and you control the dips and turns, but they're just sitting there, experience it. In a game, it's much more of a higher agency. You don't really have control on where you want the point, apart from a few waypoints maybe, but it's an experiential thing. So for us, we're learning a lot, and for us to make a Fortnite game first before going to full production mode on our Xbox game is a great way to like learn the basics of like game 101 in a way.
I mean, definitely, because films and that are more of a passive and entertainment,
Yes.
whereas a game is very much an active entertainment. So this brings me to that wonderful crossover that we've seen with like Black Mirror, the interactive TV program or the
Yeah.
interactive film.
I was going to say that's
Yeah.
changing too. But it's kind of funny that interactive TV, although we have now interactive, see, they still don't have the same replayability and interaction that games have. It's going in that direction, but I think because we work in games and we're deeply into it, at least I can say I sometimes forget and underestimate how complicated it is to create games, especially these big games with open world and
Yeah.
different replayability, because
Oh,
we
branching
are
narrative.
so immersed into it that
Yeah.
we forget that it's a lot easier to create one story, the narrative, get the hero's journey up and down. That's all. There is a formula that people have been following for ages, and we know it works. And there is a formula based on cultural differences as well. So if you're doing for an Asian market, there is a formula there. If you're doing for Western market, there is a formula there. We use that in games, but the freedom that we're giving the players is a lot different from the freedom that you give for spectators in a film, even if it is an interactive film, because the choices are so limited. Well, and I know this is not connected to this, but just because we talked about interactive films, saying, Haz, what do you think about this overlap that we are having? For example, now Netflix playing with games. Also, Amazon has been doing that for a
Sure.
while, and are the lines blurry on that sort of side as well? Like, I always wonder, will there be any line in 10 years if we continue the way we're going now, or will there all be one media that is playing
I mean,
around?
it's looking like Netflix wants to head that way by making sure that their audience never leaves Netflix, right? Like you want games? No, stay here. Just play games. We'll give you games and movies. We'll give you music. We'll give you everything. And I mean, I can see why they would do that. You know, if I owned a stream site, I probably want to do that because you want to retain your audience base. You want to retain your subscription user base, right? Because that's the thing that keeps subscribers is the new content, different type experiences. But you know, if you look at Hollywood, in like at the moment, like if you see like companies like Blumhouse who make those amazing horror films, they announced they're doing a video game arm. Then you got Bad Robot who's been doing games for a while now, and then you've got Skydance, you know, responsible for the games like for the movies like Terminator and Star Trek. They've got a games arm, and obviously Netflix and Amazon. So I feel like Hollywood. You know what the funny thing is, guys? That when I started off in games, I tried to get a job in film because I started in games doing cinematics in games. I'm like, oh, I can go make movies. I want to work on visual effects. And the level of snobbery between the two industries was so, oh my God. It was like, but you make games. Like, we make movies. Like, can you not see the difference? I'm like, oh yeah, okay, sure. And the funny thing is, I left the game industry to go into movies because I had this thing in my head, which is so hilarious when I think about it now, but which was, why am I making movies on a computer in a game engine? Duh. What am I doing now? Making movies in a game engine, right? So
yeah, not only you, everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're like, yeah, and
exactly.
I find it funny. People going talking about Mandalorian, and I'm like, yeah, it's no.
But it's a generational thing, I think, but also it's a market thing as well. But like, back in the day, remember when the first Street Fighter movie came out with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and people hated it because I was one of those guys that I'm like, oh my God, what's that done to my character? And then they did Mario Brothers and Bob Hoskins, and film and video games just did not gel. Those two things were like, no, keep them separated, please. Now, if you look at the latest biggest hits, like Mario Brothers being one of the biggest video game adaptation hits, and you got Last of Us, Sonic the Hedgehog, all of a sudden the whole thing are like, oh, it's okay to bring the two together. And I think it's because technology's got better, but also the audience have got better, but also the executives, the creatives are much more educated now. Their kids play video games, they're immersed in video games, and the IP, the way you handle IP in a video game, like, the fact that they got Neil Druckmann to direct an episode of Last of Us, it's clearly shown, oh, it's okay. We can jump between the two now. Like even when we're hiring artists from video games to film. We had someone that worked on like Ubisoft jump on our game and then jump on a film. Even the skill set. So I think as a generational thing, the industry is really getting closer. It will mesh together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it now is not going to be led by so much executives or us as general. I think a lot of it's going to be led by the consumers. The consumers are going to dictate what they want, which is why I'm so excited about UGC. Like, yes, we're seeing UGC in Minecraft, but I think we're scratching the surface. I don't think we're going to see moments where consumers are going to be those indie developers that would usually go to your game jam, Charly. I remember, by the way, I loved game jams because I started off doing game jams in bedroom coding back in the day on Commodore 64 and all of that. So I love that game jams still go on, and I think it's so important. To me, that's the education of proper game development. So yeah,
I fully support your opinion. That's a cheat on. No, it absolutely is, and so we're still working in that game jam space and that game creation, but with things like the Heritage Jam, we are moving into working with film studios and things that maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we'd be like, no, they're film and we're game. Now, to play devil's advocate is part of this shift because games are making a lot more money than movies. And so executives are like, oh, cash wagon. I mean, I'm sure it's not all like that, but potentially.
But not only that, I think also if we see games the way they were done in the 70s and 80s, there wasn't much, like the very early games have very little, very simple stories, very the development was limited, technology was limited. So of course it was not like movies are a lot older. We have had films for ages now, and so it's a bit like the older brother that snobs the younger brother that doesn't know anything, but then the brother grows and shows its talent, and you go money. Like, yeah. And earns more money, but also is, I think every industry and I think if we exploded the time, all right, like I explode the time every time. I don't know why I say half an hour. I know why I say half an hour, because if I don't say half an hour, we talk for two. I think that every industry also has cycles, and movies, because it's a lot older, came into a point where if they didn't rediscover themselves and change themselves, they started seeing drops on box office, and now technology is getting to them, because now you have Netflix and Amazon. People don't need to go to the movie theater anymore. The same with music. Like, record companies were for ages like, no, we're this way, charge this way, musicians get this way, until Spotify came along and Deezer, and then they realized, oh, I need to change, because if I don't change, I won't have an industry to manage anymore. So one part is the natural evolution, and the other is also because is what Charly said, is the money. If they don't change, they won't have an industry to work with. And I think games are gonna get to this point as well. And I think UGC is a natural evolution of that. If we think that we had mods forever, but now for a long time mods were a luxury. It's something that developers would fight against sometimes, because someone is breaking my game. And nowadays it became something that a lot of developers realize, that allowing mod is a user acquisition approach. Because if you will give freedom to your players, they will be more keen to play with it to begin with.
Correct.
What I think is interesting about UGC is the fact that it's not constrained at all. Like in a studio, you're constrained by the studio ethos or what you're working on, whereas UGC is entirely constrained by that kid's imagination. And so there's that freedom to play, and that's something that in industry, we all want the freedom to play, but unfortunately we're working on this project, doing this thing. And that's where all the really cool, weird stuff. And we've said this before, we're all here for the weird. And that's the kind of thing that I feel is going to drive things forwards, where people are going, oh, hang on a minute, we never thought of that. Let's have a look at this. And that's where I see UGC going.
Yeah, it's taking those bold ideas, right? I mean, you're absolutely right, Charlie. Like the minute you have a studio, the minute you raise a bit of budget or finance and there's a schedule and a delivery date, it's a product.
Yeah.
You are on a product. Now you could try your best to make sure it's a fun experience and that you stay true to the vision, to the reason why you wanted to make this game or movie or whatever medium you're working in. But it becomes this thing where you got to deliver what you promised, right?
Yeah.
And you can't decide, oh, I'm going to stick a pink elephant in there today because it's cool. They're like, wait, what? That wasn't in the pitch deck. Like, what? Whereas you're right, UGC, you can experiment and be bold, and no one is like, no one is restricting you. You don't have this crazy deadline. You want to take 2 weeks, 2 months, a year, take your time. You want to change your idea midway and decide it to be something else, you can. You want to fail and fail fast, you can. And I think that's the power of UGC. And that's, to me, why I was so excited about UEFN as a UGC for a commercial company, because we failed tons, guys. Oh my God, the stuff we were messing up on our optimization. And for example, when you make a game, you press play in Unreal to test it, right? When you're doing a Fortnite game, no, you got to upload it onto a private server. But before it goes into a private server, it's got to do the validation check. It's also got to do the video memory check. And if you fail that, you can't test your game. So it's a whole different experience. Whereas I remember making my first Quake mod. And it was extremely, extremely hard to make Quake mods because you had to download the level. It was on a floppy disk in DOS to load it up. We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Whereas today, you just sign up to Roblox, sign up to Fortnite, and boom, you can make your level. You have all the mechanics built in for you. So that's really interesting what you said about the whole the mod world back in the day. It was developers saw that as a hacking. You're hacking our game. Because now it's like, no, here are the tools. Go make a version. That's one of the things that makes me excited. One reason why me and my team cannot wait to get our game out. And also with Mintopia, because we want people to remix our level. We want people to remix stuff, because not only is it exciting to see people immerse in your world, but it's also exciting to see that your game is not just a passive thing or just a one-off experience, but it's something that's inspired other people to make stuff because you planted the seed based on your IP. That is a great feeling as a creator.
True. We need to close, but I have one last question before we close. What advice would you give to people that want to go the same path they did? That want to explore Transmedia or explore UGC or both, and don't know exactly what would be a good starting point for them?
Charlie, do you want to go first? I feel like I've talked the most here.
Well, when you were the guest.
Okay.
I was merely going to ask how lucky it was that you ended up at 2 companies where your first name is in the company name. Haz Film and Hazimation. That's pure luck.
Well, I wonder who founded them. Yeah, it's a brand thing. To answer your question, Paddy, it's really simple. Just try it, download it. There is no cost in downloading Roblox. There is no cost in downloading Unreal or Unity. Well, maybe Unity there is a bit, but to download any of those, whether it's Sandbox or UEFN, there is no cost. Just download it, play with it. Some of the ideas that myself and my team have come up with are never usually something that we put in a pitch deck. It's usually we're just moving around. Ooh, this is cool. Let's do that. So I would say, don't try to do a tutorial or anything. Download it, have a play of it, make a list of things that you want to achieve. So in case for UEFN, wanted to know how to get a level up and going and upload it onto a server, just experience it. That's the first thing. I didn't want to learn blueprints. I didn't want to learn verse programming. I don't do all that. I just want to know how to get some up and going very fast. And then from there, you start going, ooh, what if I did this? What if I do that? Or why isn't this working? Build up that way. I think that's the best way for anyone at any level. Is the best way to get into that.
Nice. Charlie, do you want to comment?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm fully agree with what you said. Just get in there and have a play. And then, YouTube has got really great tutorials if you want to go further into it. Unreal itself has amazing tutorials. There's so much out there, and the first one you play with might not be the one for you, so don't get disheartened. There's so many different engines. There's no code engines. There's ones where you don't even need art. So there's always something. There's so many different options. Even Twine, if you just are thinking about narrative-based games. So I would just say play. And that's what it should be, right? Play, have fun. If you're having fun making it, probably that will translate to a fun game.
And my 2 cents would be, this is also a great way. Just because I was reading today how difficult it is to get in the games industry, how difficult it is to get a job, especially if you are in a junior, like non-experienced position. This is also a great way for you to show your talent and also to get a grip on if that's something that you really want to do. If you want to be a game developer and you don't know where to start, UGC platforms are great for you to test the waters, put your ideas for an audience to test, and without the pressure necessarily of having to be successful. But who knows, you might get surprised as well that you have more traction than you expected out of your idea. But let's focus on the worst case scenario. You do there, nothing happens, but you put some ideas out. This is a portfolio. This is something that you can also show to employers. Look, I don't have as much experience on this, but I have been doing all these things. These are my design ideas, my programming, depending on what you want to do, production. And there are companies that are fully built on creating things for UGC as well. You never know what can happen. And in the end of the day, it's always better to be actively working on something that you want to do than expecting other people to get a job, to help you get the job. Like anything you can do on your own side is better. And if you are a game developer, and like what my colleague said, explore, explore, explore. You never know where the next opportunity is going to pop up.
And I would add
just
join the game
to tag
jam.
on to that, because we're going to keep going forever.
Yeah.
Just to tag on to that, Paddy, the reason that I'm in the fortunate position to be where I am today, which is making games and animated shows and Unreal, because during the pandemic, when live action was put on hold, instead of sitting there waiting for my agents to call me and stuff, I'm just going to learn Unreal. I got some time, and it's the best. I have to say, the best decision I made in my career was to never stop learning. And like right now, I'm so fascinated when a new tool come out. There's a new tool called Shoot 'em Up, or I think it's SHU up. It's for making shoot 'em up games, shoot 'em up or something. And it's free. Download it. It's fantastic. I'm like, oh my god! Like, do I need to go make a 2D game? No, but it's great to keep learning. And I think it's so important that no matter how high up in the chain you are, how experienced you are, keep learning, man, because that's where those opportunities come.
Very true. Guys, thank you very much. This was awesome. Thank
you.
And Haz, I know I tell that to everybody, but it is true. I have the best guests, and you're always welcome to come back anytime you want. We are lucky girls. We always have the really best guests. Like it's great. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yay.